Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review for the 21st of December, 1991. We're going to go through this backwards. We've got a bunch of these up, and I continue to enjoy going through 1991. Actually, done a bunch to wear. I believe I actually have most of 1991 completed, and we will go backwards through these. So, should have the majority of 91 complete within the next week or so. Maybe even quicker than that, depending on what my schedule looks like. Anyway, this is a 2.5 hour edition of WCW Saturday Night. Don't know why it's 2.5 hours. Maybe a holiday bonus, or Turnerville doesn't have a bunch of content to put out at the time. I don't really know, but anyway, they are kind of sort of, I wouldn't say fully struggling as a component here. They're not really struggling that hard. They're just kind of here. Anyway, so, featuring opening footage from the previous week in which Tag Team Champions Ricky Steamboat narrowly avoided striking Medusa, only to be attacked by Bobby Eaton and the TV champion Steve Austin for what seems to be maybe second week in a row, something like that. Anyway, they also do the top 10 rankings, which kind of is there. And there's also regarding Starrcade, with the potential brought up by Eric Bischoff in the WCW magazine, talking about the idea that various people may face each other, including Luger and Sting. And there's also footage of previous week's Steamboat versus Eaton match and Medusa interfering. Austin versus the Arachnaman match includes a graphic and then the winner of Starrcade 91 contest is trying to advance, and then there's a bunch of featuring a video package Jushin Liger to promote him coming to the WCW in the Omni against Brian Pillman for the Light Heavyweight Championship. Clips of Liger facing Pegasus Kid, aka Chris Benoit. Multiple matches from Japan. Also features Ross conducting a ringside interview with the U.S. Tag Team Champions Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong regarding their upcoming Best 2 out of 3 Falls match against Todd Champion and Firebreaker Chip, which they do not seem the least bit worried about. Relative newcomer Van Hammer defeating Zan Panzer. 2 minutes 46 seconds. Punch kick. Also announced that Georgia Mountain Center at Gainesville, Georgia would air Starrcade on closed circuit during the match. It's also announced that Hammer and El Gigante would face Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher Christmas night at the Omni. Certainly not a match that I imagine the WCW version of Madison Square Garden needs to be terribly worried about. Anyway, as mentioned, Van Hammer punch kick, stomping the ground, some arm drags, and Panzer is not exactly getting into a good role. He's also wearing a salmon colored outfit, which probably doesn't do much for his fashion. But the top wrist locks followed by body slams, and then eventually followed by a pretty aggressive slingshot suplex for Van Hammer. Then we go to the Cactus Jack promo. Cactus Jack basically says he'll team with anybody that he has to at Starrcade. He says he'd wear a guitar if he had to team with Van Hammer. He said he'd wear a face paint if he had a team with Sting, etc. and so forth. Cactus Jack also out there with Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah the Butcher, of course, his on-again, off-again tag team partner. They don't seem to be getting along very well in the previous weeks. And then we go to the continuation. Big Josh, a.k.a. Matt Bourne, in an enhancement match here. Big Josh still in the WCW at this time, although he leaves soon thereafter. I don't remember him being with the company long into 92, maybe a little while, but certainly he struggles with that. Then we go to Big Josh defeating Chuck Coates with a running sit-down splash, 220. A couple of body slams, basic maneuvers, and the what eventually becomes the whoopee cushion, only without the top rope component to it, is what Big Josh, aka Matt Warren, uses as a finishing maneuver. So it's not exactly your most impactful or exciting finishing maneuver, but Big Josh there also does the log roll, which is basically dancing on a guy's chest for a couple of seconds in that. And yes, I really said dancing on his chest because that's what it looks like. Anyway, we move to another in the series of matches, pretty basic stuff, and ultimately Bobby Eaton is out here. Bobby Eaton continuing his wars with Ricky Steamboat in a highlight film package, which we've talked about before. This is part of the WCW magazine segment with Eric Bischoff. Bischoff looking like a complete business suit at the time. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but certainly not going to be driving anybody to buy, tickets or whatever looking like that. But then we go to the continuation of things here. Cactus and Abdullah obviously doing some very basic moves, more basic for Abdullah than Cactus to begin with. They defeat Scott Allen and Rick Ryder in around 3.5 minutes or so. Abdullah pins Ryder with an elbow drop. Also before the bout, Cactus Jack knocks Allen to the floor with Abdullah striking Allen with his kendo stick, and Cactus does the double arm DDT along the way. Also manages to do the flying dive. Then we go to Sting defeating John Peterson, with the Scorpion Deathlock around 112. Following the match, Jim Ross conducts an interview with U.S. champion Rick Rude. Sting, though, in his match, a couple of arm drags, Stinger Splash, and the Scorpion Deathlock all in a minute and a quarter. The interview with Rick Rude, Paulie Dangerously, and Medusa. Sting is in the ring during this. I don't quite understand why two hated rivals wouldn't go heads up with each other in that scenario, but who cares? We don't need logic in booking, do we? Rude then acknowledges that the members of the Dangerous Alliance all come to ringside helping Rude, and Sting celebrates in the ring. Then we move to Bobby Eaton with Medusa defeating Ricky Nelson with the Alabama Jam 339. After the bout, Eaton pulls Nelson to his feet so Medusa could kick him. Medusa wore a ball cap and casual clothes for the contest. Medusa, they're trying to play down her sexuality. She's been here a while, and they kind of sort of play her as the unstoppable bad chick, but they really don't have, at this point, that many wrestling-related women that they're bringing into WCW at the time, although they did earlier in the year. So I don't know if it was just an about switch or what that was. Anyway, Bobby Eaton, pretty aggressive and also keeping things going with some suplexes, hard chops, and eventually the Alabama Jam. Eaton, of course, as a multi-time tag team champion, is able to keep a match going, and having that long, but Eaton drops the knee. Odd that earlier in the year he was challenging Ric Flair, and now we can barely get him to do very much in terms of a consistent, strong push, except when he's with Arn Anderson in the tag team. The highlights of the Liger and Benoit matches come from Japan. I think there's an agreement with New Japan at the time, something like that. Also, there's some shots by Liger. Liger, of course, for the time, one of the advent of the Nature 2, the light heavyweight division as WCW would have it. Frankensteiner, among other moves, and Jim Ross doing the voiceover for this is quite interesting. Also a tope dive to the outside, which we hadn't seen in much of American wrestling, nor have we seen the springboard Asai moonsault and other great high spots. Benoit as the Pegasus Kid, also shown in different matches, obviously, because Benoit's under the mask in one, kind of going forward there. Then we go to Arachnaman, otherwise known as Brad Armstrong, in a knockoff Spider-Man costume in an enhancement match here. Arachnaman had a couple of decent enough matches with Steve Austin in previous weeks. Arachnaman pinning Bob Cook in 6 minutes, 12 or 11 seconds. During the match, PN News and Tom Zink would face Diamond Stud and Johnny B. Bad following night on the main event. Not exactly a match that's going to make people tune in, I wouldn't imagine. Anyway, why we need Arachnaman to carry a 6-minute match with Bob Cook, other than just lazy booking and putting people out there, putting people out there just to fill time or something, I don't really know, but it is what it is, and we got what we got. It's a unique concept here, and ultimately bringing things forward in a targeted way, and trying to get there from here. Anyway, then we go to the Arachnaman kind of getting rolled up, getting basics, and drop kick by Arachnaman. Bob Cook steps to the side. Really basic maneuvers by Cook. Cook really is, I guess you'd say, kind of just a little off base or a little uncomfortable. Anyway, Arachnaman gets that roll up as we talked about, and Arachnaman, which is a gimmick they killed because I think there is some questioning of storyline, I wouldn't say ethics, but efficacy or effectiveness going forward with Disney and other interested comic book parties and all of that. By the way, not into comics, so don't know who exactly complained, but I do remember reading that there were complaints about the gimmick being too similar to Spider-Man, and ultimately they scrapped it. Poor Brad Armstrong having to get scrapped more often than not. Anyway, we go to the next in series of matches here, which amounts to a Diamond Dallas Page Johnny Rich match. Diamond Dallas Page winning with a knee drop off the top rope. Prior to the match, Page is escorted out by the Diamond Doll. During the bout, Rich gets a broken nose from Page. Page is so not the guy that people are comfortable in seeing here, years later. Think about this, 1991, he's, in enhancement matches here, the end of 91. By 96, he's a major, coming up. By 97, he's a main eventer. So just interesting how life in wrestling can, and often does, completely change. Match is much slower than it needs to be, but he hasn't even developed a diamond cutter yet. Doesn't really have a major finish. We'll say Page takes good bumps and is willing to back down for his guy, but Page getting that top rope knee, certainly not doing the handsome Dallas Page thing like he wanted to in the 80s, but there we go. Kind of carries things through, and Page gets that top rope knee drop victory. Then we go to another in series of matches. One thing I like about WCW, they have much more wrestling matches than average. U.S. Tag Team Champions Tracy Smothers, Steve Armstrong defeat Tag Champion Firebreaker Chip. Best 2 out of 3 falls match, 2 out of 1 stipulation. Losers can't team for 60 days. Fall 1, Armstrong pins champion. At the little bit, Smothers pins Chip at 13-14, both feet on the ropes for leverage. Chip being pinned, pushing him into the corner. This is a really good match, but it's because of the heels in the ring controlling the match. Worth going out of your way to see if you just want to learn heel psychology that isn't all high spots like the Young Bucks do. We have guys like Firebreaker Chip and Todd Champion, who really don't know what they're doing much. The match is broken down. The U.S. Tag Team titles, even at this point, certainly probably considered lame duck championships, but at the same time, it's pretty amazing that the Young Pistols are able to get things going in their direction, and back and forth. Lots of use of hair, lots of use of stalling. The U.S. Tag Team Championship belts don't look that great, but they do win 2 falls to 1. 13 minutes out of that match is pretty amazing. I mean, there's nothing notable in the match in terms of major high spots, but psychology, every spot matters in the sense of long-term storytelling for the 13 minutes of the match. And then we go to another in the series of basic matches. Here we move forward into Dustin Rhodes, or actually, I'm sorry, Ricky Steamboat is up soon, but Mike Graham defeats Thomas Rich with Alexander York's 7-minute mark with a backdrop and an Oklahoma side roll. Prior to the bout, footage showed of Rich hitting Graham with York's computer the previous week. Mike Graham kind of here, for the sake of, I guess, Dusty Rhodes being Booker, would be my knee-jerk reaction, in the sense that him being part of anything major never seemed to materialize in WCW land, but at the same time, match is pretty simple. Dustin Rhodes also being up next. It's just interesting how you can see things coming forward. Mike Graham also defeating Tommy Rich after Rich had been such a major deal for so long, but then we go to, this match kind of being an unloading. Several chant for Medusa. Austin would still defend the title against Scott Steiner, although that match never happens because Steiner gets injured. Steamboat and the WCW Tag Team Champion Dustin Rhodes would also face Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton. Steamboat originally won the match and the title at 12:30, following the chop off the top, but another referee comes out and told the initial referee Austin's foot was under the bottom rope. So, and that's the 13-minute match there. We will kind of go back and go over this a little bit now, though. I mean, the Mike Graham match is super basic. Graham spends the majority of his time working over the leg of his adversary, and not much else. The match is simplistic. The match is, it's good storytelling in a sense, but at the same time, Tommy Rich, even here in 1991, to think that in 1981 he was the world champion for 4 days, can barely get anywhere with it. Then, though, we go to the Austin and Steamboat match. Super basic, but useful. You'd see glimmers of what they would have years later, 94-ish. Just an amazing run. And Steve Austin at this time is phenomenal, even though he's got, maybe a year's experience, if that, maybe a year and a half at most, if I'm stretching. But, I mean, Steve Austin at this time in WCW, one of my favorite guys. His WCW run is one of my favorite times of his. I actually like his WCW run more than his WWF run, because he's more a wrestler than kind of a character. And so Austin bumping around for Steamboat obviously carrying him to the best work he can possibly do, which is always awesome, and there's value in that. And we kind of continue there, coming forward in a, I guess you'd say, positive direction that way. Austin, though, managing to do what he can. Steamboat falls into a series of, I guess you'd say, potential submission maneuvers, side headlocks and other really basic things. But the amazing thing in it is that Austin stays right up with him, selling like $1 million for Steamboat, even though his experience level, and Steamboat's leading him through it, but his experience level is below being able to sell as well as he does. Also, being a member of the Dangerous Alliance gives Austin, I won't say instant credibility, but more credibility than he would normally have at this point in his career. Steamboat works the front face lock and does a few let him up spots for several minutes the back and forth in the match is worth going out of your way to see. The nature of Steamboat's comeback, just in terms of being worn down but not dying in the middle of the ring, is also amazing. And a really basic run. Austin manages to get a couple of hard shots, and there, Austin then manages to kind of keep things run through the modified choke burn and then a drop down. The match does end with the both guys kind of down, and of course the interference from the Dangerous Alliance, a pretty major thing. We will close there with and be back with more right after this.